afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. And we have a very special guest with us today, Evette Rose. Evette, thank you so much for being here. And Evette has some beautiful stories to share with us on how she created this book and the benefits of this book. And I didn't know, but this is actually this book is helping so many people on so many levels. So thank you, Evette. Thank you for being here and sharing this. And I will just be quiet now and hand this over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me. And first of all, as well, thank you for creating the space for us all to connect and being this beautiful conduit and platform and for us to spread the word and the magic. So thank you so much for your time and your investment as well. And a big hello to everyone. A nice, warm, sunny here from Sydney in Australia. Having a really great time actually teaching a live level 2 event. And I was really happy to catch Karen quickly before the event starts today. So I'm very excited to start my day in such a magical and powerful way, especially connecting with you from the other side of the world there. So my name is Evette Rose, as Karen's beautiful introduction there. Thank you so much. And let's talk a little bit about metaphysical anatomy, which is the big book. And it's funny, I was actually I was laughing in class yesterday because everyone says, I love your book. And I'm like, which one? Because I have 6. And she's like, which one? They're like, the big book. I'm like, oh my God. Everywhere I go, people say that. So I feel like I'm kind of on the cusp of changing the name to the big book and just throwing metaphysical anatomy away. But so let's start with what is metaphysical anatomy, because a lot of people ask me, why did you choose that name? Like, they kind of understand the anatomy part, but what is the metaphysical part? So I felt drawn to call it metaphysical anatomy because for me it's bringing what we can feel, what we can sense to be true. We know it's there because we can feel it. However, we can't see it. There's nothing in our environment that kind of proves or validates necessarily what we feel or sense. Call it the sixth sense, call it our intuition, call it messages from the body, call it messages from other people. And the physical body is such a beautiful conduit, such a beautiful antenna that receives this information and then transmits that to another vessel, which would be, for example, someone else's body. And that information then being transferred to the mind, and the mind interprets that as a language and translates the feeling into a language that is understandable to us on an intellectual level rather than on an emotional language. And it's really about connecting and binding these two in order for us to start to understand what are these beautiful messages that we have an awareness of. We know that they're there, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. We know that they're there, but we don't always understand what is the meaning of it. What is the purpose of that? What is my body trying to say? What is the universe trying to say? What is my connection with someone else trying to tell me? So it's all about bringing these two aspects together and allowing that connection to be brought into an understandable language so that we can use it constructively to improve our quality of life. Because ultimately, that is why all this information is around us. It's for us to tap into that and knowing and understanding how to do that. And that's the beauty of metaphysical anatomy. And the reason why I wrote this book is to bring what we can sense into a language that's understandable, and then with constructive steps as to what we can do about that. So I would like.
Seems like somebody is. It seems
A
like
little bit.
there's a background noise. Yeah. Everyone's muted, but if you for some reason are not muted your end, if you could please mute, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. And so now people ask me, how did you come about writing such a big book? Because to write a book, a 700 plus page book, that's a commitment, right? That really, and I can truly say that it felt like a marriage. It felt like a commitment. And so metaphysical anatomy came about when my own journey actually started. And believe me when I tell you, 10 years ago, if you told me that I would be an author, I would be traveling the world hosting personal development events, I would laugh at you, right? It was not even in my consciousness. I understand that there's divine paths, but that divine path was not clear to me at all. So I was working in an office job. I was a project support coordinator for petrochemical and mining companies. And my lifestyle was what actually brought me to my knees. But my lifestyle was a symptom of much deeper trauma and stress that took place in my childhood. But remember that, and this is almost a concept that's become quite well known now as well, that where we have this saying that abuse is the new normal. Depression is now a lifestyle and is the new normal. Now, that's because those aspects, that lifestyle, these circumstances and relationship dynamics has been there for such a long time that it now becomes normal. We desensitize to the fact that things are immoral and not in alignment with us, and instead the body is actually designed to adapt. So of course we adapt to these traumatic circumstances and it becomes normal, which means that our threshold for dealing with trauma becomes higher and higher and higher and higher, and we are less likely to recognize the pain that the body is in, right? So until, of course, everything in life has a threshold, and so does the body. Until the body hits its threshold and it says, I can't do this anymore. And it shouts out with anxiety, it shouts out with depression, it shouts out with ailments, it shouts out with chronic fatigue, and the list can go on. Now, then we start to deal with the way that the body's shouting out, which is the symptom. We don't look at the root cause because the symptom is what's most evident in that moment. And that's where we waste our time. That's where we get lost in that and I call it the healing rabbit hole, right? You jump in and you have no idea where you're going because there's no clear structure because we're dealing with a symptom. We don't look at the step before the symptom started and the step before the symptom started. So ultimately what I was doing in my life, I was just trying to cope with the symptoms, which was tremendous amount of anxiety, stress. I suffered from anorexia, I suffered from bulimia. I call it the black depression, where medication didn't even make a big difference for me and the way in my emotional state and mental state. And it came to a point where I was drinking excessively. I was smoking almost more than 30 cigarettes a day. However, I was extremely good at my job because I used my job as my scapegoat. So I invested so many hours, so much time in working to escape how I was feeling, including excessive exercising. 4 o'clock in the morning, I was up. I even had a gym in my house to save time, to not have to drive to a gym and lose time so that I can save that, right? I was very, very strict on my time and my schedule. And exercising for 2 hours and then having a coffee, having a cigarette, and then going to work and having a full 14 to 15-hour workday. And I came to a point where I just woke up one morning and I remember I lit a cigarette, I was lying in bed, and I thought to myself, and I remember just staring at this blank ceiling, and I'm like, this is it. I'm absolutely done. I'm thinking, what am I living for? I'm living and getting up every day to just abuse myself mentally and physically. There's nothing in my life that makes me happy. There's nothing what I'm even getting up for. I stopped believing in things that used to make me feel passionate. I stopped believing in the fact that happiness can exist. I believed in absolutely nothing. And what I realized as well is with us as humans, we get up in the morning every morning because there's something that we believe in. There's something that is important enough that makes us get up. And I realized as I was lying there in bed that there was absolutely nothing at all for me. I was in an abusive relationship. It was violent. I hated my job. I hated my life. I didn't have friends because I didn't have time for friends. I didn't really have time for me because I didn't realize at that time that my relationship with myself was so destructive. However, that was only a mirror and a reflection of how I allowed people to treat me in the past. Because that dynamic becomes your relationship with yourself if you don't have awareness of how that is being internalized and how your definition of love starts to be molded and focused on how you were treated. And that becomes your inner definition of self-love as well. And with all these thought patterns and just realizations, just all this running through my mind, I was lying in bed, I thought, there's one thing that I noticed in my life that I'm going to just explore before I make this final decision. When I say final decision, I was ready to commit suicide that morning. I called the office and I said, I'm not coming in, and preparing in my mind how I can move forward with this. And I thought, but one that there's people around me that's happy. What are they doing that I'm not? Because the fact that they can feel it tells me that I should be able to feel it as well. But what step am I missing here? Because there was a huge gap. And coming from being completely Christian, moving to being an extreme atheist, talk about overcompensation, right? And sitting there in front of my computer, and this is coming from a place of feeling completely unresourceful. I didn't have any other answer, so I thought, well, I might as well just go on Google. Let's Google how to be happy. And that's exactly what I did. And then all these personal development courses come up, and I'm like, really? This is going to be the path? This is what I need to do to be happy? Is this some kind of sick joke? And it really challenged me. It really challenged me that all these things came up, because if I couldn't see something, why should I believe in it? Right? So I kind of was on that black and white cusp, and I thought, after mulling over it for a while, I decided I'm going to take the plunge, because honestly, I don't have a better answer. So I'm going to try this. And so, long story short, I did embark on these journeys, and I started seeing improvements in myself. And the improvements stopped to a certain extent, and I couldn't find that extra push that I was looking for. And so I decided, I quit my job actually as well at the same time. I worked on myself very intensely for 3 months. I have a bit of extremist personality. I'm all in or I'm not in at all, right? So, but it was a bit over the top. But I was all in. 3 months, worked really hard on myself. I started experimenting with other people, meaning friends, and just like they getting really great results as well. And with word of mouth, I actually quit my job and I was able to do this full time. And my life just continued to improve. And one moment I did a session with someone just exploring another modality, and the modality required me to relive the trauma. And so the trauma, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't expect it. And so my history was all full of sexual abuse, trauma, molestation, rape, violence, physical abuse. So it was not a very pleasant experience, to say. It was nice, actually, undermining what actually it felt like. I mean, if any of you have ever re-traumatized because of the situation, we had to relive something from the past in order to heal it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's intense, and it can be a soul-breaking moment as well. And for me, the practitioner was so triggered by what I was going through, because the same thing happened to her, and she couldn't get me out of that state. And at that time, I was already starting to work on the metaphysical anatomy technique. And so I called a friend, as you do. I ended the session, I called a friend, I said, I was so hysterical that I couldn't talk myself through the process. And I asked her, listen, I just need you to read the structure. So all you need to do, just read me through it so that I can just get out of this. And she read me through it, and the trauma cycles in my body, I could feel them just gently releasing and finally completing. And my body went into a complete state of serenity and harmony. And I thought, this is it. This technique is finally ready to be really fully shared in a very big way. And as a result of that moment, I finally set myself free, and I started to really dive into metaphysical anatomy. Now you're probably wondering, well, how did you write metaphysical anatomy? It actually came from working with students and understanding and seeing consistencies across the world, from people in Australia and people in America who has certain ailments, all shared the same trauma points. And I thought, this is incredible. They're from different cultures, different belief systems, different upbringing, different diet, different environmental factors playing a role in their body. Yet we all collectively shared the same reactions and trauma points for certain ailments. And I realized that that's also because our biological body has the same blueprint, it has the same foundation to a certain extent. And when I say a certain extent, it's our emotional reaction, it's our brain development, and it's our instinctive responses. All these are exactly the same. The nervous system, the master cell. And I thought, wow. And I started documenting this out of fun, but the more people started asking me questions and how to help them, I realized that the best way to support people is to actually say, is to document everything and put it in a book and say, here you go. See where's the answers and see how it can support you. So that's how I started to write Metaphysical Anatomy. Now, just a little bit about metaphysical anatomy, because a lot of people hear me say the word trauma and they're like, I don't know if this is for me, because I don't think I had any significant trauma. But when I sit down with them for a minute or two, I point out all the points where the body experienced trauma. But we don't perceive it as being traumatic, because our threshold sometimes for trauma can be so heightened, meaning there's a numbness for it, that on an intellectual level, we don't perceive it as being traumatic. But that's also because we're so disconnected from the body and the unconscious memories that's being stored there, that we feel the reaction of it and then we dismiss it as nothing because we don't see anything from the frontal cortex that would validate how we feel. So we try to talk down and try to dismiss what the body is feeling and actually reacting to. Now, say for example, you have a very stressful job, but it's not as stressful where you feel panic every day, but you go through a stressful period in your job, say for 1 to 2 years. That in itself can be traumatic because the body can only hold and tolerate that level of stress to a certain period of time, until that threshold, until your cup starts to run over. And you either have a psychological breakdown, you start having panic attacks, you start suffering from depression. That is when the body is telling you, I feel stressed, I'm overwhelmed, and it turns into trauma, meaning biological trauma. Now, and this is exactly what also happened with me on my journey, right? So I didn't feel necessarily traumatized because the trauma and the stress that I went through as a child was so normal, right? It was actually a lifestyle. I was so numb, and that my body was experiencing the trauma, but that threshold collapsed on my journey, and it collapsed in a way where I was ready to, like I said, the crossword, I was ready to check out. And so coming from that and then looking also at the physical body, because I love talking about the body because we have so many answers that are in the body. However, we avoid the very thing that we need to understand and have a relationship in order to live a fulfilling life. But we have such a negative association with it because this is where the pain is. This is where we feel the pain. And we are designed to avoid pain. So of course we avoid the very thing that is in pain, but we also avoid the very thing that we need to understand and to have a relationship with in order to live the life that we want, because this is the vessel that's going to help you to fulfill your purpose. So a defragmented relationship with it is not going to help you to fully get to where you want to be. So we spin our wheels, we start looking outside of ourselves, we work with energies outside of ourselves. But the problem is here. And a part of the problem is not understanding how the body stores trauma. It's not understanding how the body reacts to stored memories from our ancestry, how it reacts to our own memories, and how it reacts to environmental information that's always being sent back and forth between us and other people and collective consciousness fields. This all has a tremendous impact on the body. And so in this case, coming back to that, we all know the importance of thought and also emotion, right? And how powerful this combination is. And that we can actually change our life by changing our thoughts, right? Now, I know that you're thinking, well, Evette, that's great. That's easier said than done, right? So as we can change a thought, however, the negative emotions that's associated with this thought that we're trying to change can actually continue to keep bringing the negative thoughts back up again that you're trying to change, right? I'm sure some of you can relate to what I'm saying. Now, the reason why this happens is that emotional trauma and stress are actually locked into the body, and it's held in place with reactive instinctive responses. Now, let me explain. So when you look at the development of the body and the brain develops from the bottom up, right? So starting at the instinctive responses, and then the emotional sectors are developed, and then the thinking brain stems from the emotional brain, right? Hence from thought to emotion. Okay, so now here it gets actually a little bit more interesting as the heart. The heart plays an incredibly big role. We think that we also just have a brain that's holding intelligent information, but the heart has its own intelligent mind and brain. Now, on top of that, the heart's magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the field produced by the brain. And I'll explain a little bit in 1 minute why I'm mentioning this, because this is incredibly important. But 5,000 times stronger by the brain transmitters. And memories are also stored in the heart. So if you give a piece of tissue from the heart to a neurosurgeon and they put it under a microscope, they will be fully convinced that they're looking at tissue from a brain, right? So, and also on top of that, the heart also feels emotions actually much stronger. Hence why when we feel, and there's also then the nerve that runs through the heart. Hence why we always feel the pain when we lose someone, when we feel emotionally stressed. Many of us feel it in the heart, or that stress runs through the muscles. We have muscles in the body that's dedicated to our instinctive responses that's connected to the reptilian mind. So when we feel the stress, the physical, that reason why we contract, that's the reptilian mind firing off the fight or flight. So now also, just to come back to the heart, now what can make emotions confusing is that memories tend to actually be genetically stored in the heart, which means that you can be feeling and expressing your parents' emotions, for example, by having a glimpse of their memories, and then you accept that memory as your own, right? Now the heart also has the capacity to independently think and feel to the brain, and actually even refuse to accept instructions and signals from it. Now, coming back to the genetic memory that's being held in the heart, say, now you see flashes of inherited memories, right? And this could actually cause you to act as if though your unconscious mind is reacting to it as if though it's yours, right? Because the amygdala will now actually scan the limbic system for the emotional resonance, which then triggers also your own memories and also emotional reactions that your frontal cortex, that, for example, needs to calm down. And then rationalize with the emotional parts of the brain that what you're feeling is not presently relevant. There's nothing in your environment validating how you feel. Because, for example, the trigger could have been as a result of a sound implant, meaning a sound that reminded a genetic memory in you of a memory of someone that, for example, was in the war, just as an example, right? So, as I said, that your present environment, it's not showing you any proof or sign that would validate how the body is reacting and feeling right now. Now, the key takeaway here is that the memory is not so much the problem. It is how the memory makes you feel that becomes the problem, as it has a direct impact on your health and also the physical body. And you could also be, as I said, emotionally reacting to memories that do not even belong to you, which means that the core emotion of the fake, as I call it, fake memory in this case, because it doesn't belong to you, makes you feel a certain way. And now you have your own emotional experiences and reactions that you have accumulated from your life that fires off, and then the body reacts. And as a result of the reaction that you cannot relate to, because it's not tied to your own personal experience, you start to build coping mechanisms around this, around a memory that never belonged to you, which makes your journey for healing 10 times harder, because now you're trying to heal that's something that's not yours, because it's based on a memory that you've had glimpses of, and we build a reality around this memory, and we bring life to a memory that doesn't belong to us. Now, what happens here is that the body starts to release stress hormones because it doesn't understand the difference between a memory and something that's actually happening. However, the reason why we don't react as strongly to these memories is because we have the frontal cortex to rationalize and say, hey, let's calm down. There's nothing in our environment validating how we're feeling right now. So what happens is that your body releases stress hormones and it releases cortisol. And there's a 20-minute cycle where the stress continues to release and it's running through the body, and the body is stuck in a fight or flight state. Now, normally what happens is that the body continues to stay in the state of distress because of these unconscious memories that's triggered, because we can feel something is wrong. And I know that you know what I'm talking about. You know something is wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That is when you have an unconscious memory that's being stimulated, and you know that there's nothing in your environment showing you a reason to feel that way. Now, what happens is after 20 minutes, if you stay in that state of distress, that stress cycle resets, and a new 20-minute stress cycle starts, releasing more cortisol, depleting the adrenals, depleting the body, and depleting your immune system. Now, look at someone that has a high-level stressful job, never had any trauma in their life, but you had a high stressful job. Look at this 20-minute cycle continuously, repeating. And then we wonder why we feel so exhausted. Then we wonder why we suffer from chronic fatigue. We wonder why we have ailments. We wonder why our immune system is failing us. Your immune system is doing nothing but fighting something that it cannot see. Your body and instinctive responses are reacting to something and trying to keep you safe against something that it cannot see. There's nothing to validate that, but it's still reacting because it is your body's sole purpose to keep you alive, right? So now, based on what I said, it is also important to remember that your emotional reaction right? It always comes with an instinctive response and vice versa. So a note here, because what fires off together wires together. And this then forms connections and associations. And it quickly turns into coping mechanisms. Because now what we're trying to do is we're trying to cope with stress and trauma because that is what we feel, right? We don't always have a conscious recollection of the core reason behind our emotions. And as a result of our coping mechanisms, hear this now, as a result of our coping mechanisms, we form secondary gains in hidden benefits to try and see the benefit in something that is unhealthy. However, unconsciously, it keeps us safe. However, the body is also aware of the destructive pattern behind it. And the body, all that it wants to do is just to cope with the stress. Because this is, for example, now the final cycle that people that takes place. You have the coping mechanisms, then we have secondary gains and hidden benefits based on coping mechanisms. Now we try to always heal secondary gains, but people are not looking what's the coping mechanism that's tied into that. And then we wonder why we don't heal. We work on emotions and that we feel in our life, but also we try to tap into memories that don't belong to us. And then the memory becomes the main focus point of what we're trying to heal. And there's maybe one core emotion that you can relate to that's relating to this fake memory. But what about all the other emotions that's coming up? And we look at this memory and we think, but we can't really relate certain aspects to that. And then you spend years trying to heal a memory that never happened to you, right? So the reason why you feel an emotional reaction is because it could be mom or dad's, or it could be that there's a part of your unconscious mind that can relate to it to a certain extent because of a prior experience in your own past, right? So it's incredibly amazing how the body stores trauma and how to understand these subtle little points that can be life-changing in your healing journey. It can be life-changing in reclaiming your quality of life. And so in MIT, what I love about MIT is that we learn how to easily and effortlessly tap into that. People tell me, I'm not intuitive, I can't do this, I don't think this is for me. Well, perfect. This is exactly what MIT is really good at. I'm very well known for just bursting open people's intuition, because you learn to understand what it is that we need to look for and how to easily interpret what the body's saying. You could instantly become psychic by just knowing how the body responds and reacts and the language that it's communicating to you, because that language is extremely accurate because it holds the pain points of the person that you're working with, right? So now you're probably wondering, well, how does MIT work? So say, for example, I'm sure that you've had an experience where you saw someone on the street or someone walking past you. You couldn't see their face. However, you could just feel this heaviness. You could feel something very negative. You could feel this person was not in a good space. They were very unhappy, or they were perhaps very angry because their mind and their focus was so invested and set and stuck in this negative state that you could feel that. That is the mind and the body's magnetic fields communicating. That's information transfer. Now, sometimes you continue to carry that feeling, especially if you're an empath, and I'm sure you can relate. And I know that you also have that people who are empaths, we tend to have really bad boundaries because we are nurturers, we are caretakers. So we tend to not have that energetic boundary as well. So we take on what other people feel. Now, what happened there is that the mind and the heart's fields were communicating. And there was an information transfer, and you reacted to that. Now, here's the beauty of the body. That's a negative way of looking at it. But look how you can flip this around. Imagine that same person just energizing and focusing on happiness. That person is focusing on life is amazing, focusing on love, and having a clear focus intent, knowing and understanding where and how a body can release trauma. How will you respond to that? Exactly the same way that you responded to the sad or the angry person, but in a positive way. Because that information being communicated back and forth between you and the other person is waking up your resources and reminding the body, hey, wow, I recognize this. I know how to react to that. I know how to release this. This is amazing. Now someone is remembering how I operate. Of course, I'm going to take advantage of this and I'm going to respond to that. That is exactly how metaphysical anatomy works. It's through clear intention It's through focus and understanding how to focus. That is one thing that we all lack in life because we are so bombarded with information. We are so bombarded with conversations and stress from our environment that we don't know how to stay focused anymore. Hence why we're so ungrounded as well. However, that place of focus, that is where your power is. The intention comes secondly, but it's the focus. I'm sure you know that you've talked to someone, right? You have eye contact, you're talking to the person, and then you feel a dip in the connection. It's like, wow, I feel like I just lost the person, but they're still kind of looking at me. It's like, what just happened? That's when the person's focus has been diverted away from you. You can feel that. Now imagine if you sit in a healing and you're trying to hold the space for someone to heal, and your focus is all over the place. Your healing session and your results are going to be all over the place, whether you are a practitioner for someone else or whether you are your own practitioner. Because metaphysical anatomy is designed to show you how to heal yourself, how to become your own best practitioner. And if you choose to join the metaphysical anatomy family, the certification is optional. We would love to welcome you, and you can become a practitioner as well. So, and one thing as well that you've probably gathered by now is that I'm very passionate about not reliving trauma. And metaphysical anatomy is beautifully designed also exactly for that. You don't have to relive your trauma. I've even designed it because, of course, I've worked with people in very severe cases where you also don't have to talk about the trauma, right? You don't have to tell the story if you don't want to. However, if you need to express it, then of course the technique's designed and it's flexible for you to do that as well. So in metaphysical anatomy, what you'll be doing is you will learn how to work with different parts of the brain by understanding how in the limbic system, in the hippocampus, how we hold emotions there, and how to delicately work with that to release the pain that is being held there, to calm the amygdala down, to still have the memories, but the emotional stress is not there. Because I always believe that I don't see the value in deleting memories or deleting beliefs. There's value in them. So we preserve the positive learnings. However, we let go of the pain because we don't have to fight and struggle anymore to learn in order to heal, because it can be fun, it can be easy, and it can be graceful. So in metaphysical anatomy, I also made it it's definitely part of the journey to have fun. We have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. And it's in that place of playfulness that the magic also happens, because when you are not so stressed or so rigid or, oh my gosh, things has to happen a certain way, that is when the magic comes to you. That is when you start to open up the RAS, the reticular activating system, which that's the filter in our mind that focuses on what's around us. So for example, if you're in a place of pain, you're just going to filter in pain. That's the RAS. If you're happy, you're just going to see happy people and happy circumstances, and life looks great, right? But if you're in pain, life looks pretty crappy. That's the RAS. So that playful state really allows the RAS to calm down and to relax, and letting more information come in that you didn't even know was right there in front of you. And also, what's really important with metaphysical anatomy, I don't know if some of you might have seen my YouTube channel. I have a demonstrations playlist, and there's a demonstration, for example, of a lady completing trauma, and it's through a gentle shivering. That is a natural trauma cycle completing. We crying, right? We cry, and that's a natural trauma cycle completing. It's a natural cycle. But look at the toxic negativity that we have associated with crying. We have shame associated with it. You're weak if you cry. And then because of all these negative associations, we stop a cycle dead in its tracks. And when you stop a trauma cycle from completing, you lock in a trauma. And that trauma is going to keep coming back until you allow that cycle to complete. Now, hyperventilating is another great example of a cycle trying to complete. Panic attacks, it's a trauma cycle trying to complete. Shivering as well, trauma cycle trying to complete. Now, to give you an example, if you allow a trauma cycle to complete naturally on its own, that trauma is not going to keep coming back in order for you to heal that. If someone's crying and you hug them and you try to comfort them, trauma cycle locks in place. The autonomic nervous system locks in the trauma until certain circumstances in the future, whether it's emotional dynamics, whether it's through sound, whether it's through smell, triggers that trauma, and the body goes back into that state of distress. and then we wonder why we're sad all the time, right? That's a classic example of a trauma constantly being triggered where you were sad and that crying cycle was interrupted, right? So people say happiness has, or sadness has become the new happiness. Well, that's just because of a trauma cycle that's stuck. But look at the natural cycle that's needed in order to complete the trauma is being blocked because of our associations with it. So that's just to give you another really fun example of how that works. And so when we're learning how to work with the instinctive responses, how to work with the autonomic nervous system, and it's super easy, super easy. You don't need any prior experience of the anatomy. You don't need any prior experience of anything related to the physical body. You will learn everything in those 5 days. You'll learn how to be an amazing practitioner, how to be confident. You'll understand how the mind works and how we store the trauma. And when certain things come up, you know exactly what to do with it because you will be spoiled for choice with tools that you can use and find your strength in these tools and then develop your MAT technique that is unique to you, right? So, and remember that during these cases also, and just touching a little bit more also on why I'm not a fan of reliving trauma, is that we all are familiar with the concept of neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, right? So certain chemicals, stress chemicals are needed in order for neuroplasticity to take place. Now, neuroplasticity is when you have an existing neural pathway that now becomes strengthened or weakened as a result of your environmental stimulation. And it's, of course, your internal world stimulation as well. So if you re-traumatize yourself with trying to heal something, that neural pathway can actually become even stronger. Or if you're unlucky, you can actually have neurogenesis taking place, which is a new neural pathway that can start to develop based on this traumatic experience that you have. And now you have this traumatic experience even more hardwired into the brain, even more hardwired into the unconscious mind and into the limbic system, which is the emotional brain, right? So it's incredibly important to understand how the body stores trauma and the do's and the don'ts, because there are pros and cons. The body does have a beautiful divine way of how it's operating. And it's a matter of us to reconnect back to that, because we used to know how. But we got so bombarded with instructions and ways of being controlled by society and rules and regulations that we've become followers instead of our own leaders. And it's really time to kind of like step back into that driver's seat and start to trust our intuition, to trust our consciousness, which I refer to as the soul, and to trust the consciousness and the strength and these beautiful antennas that we have in the mind and the heart that coexist, but also beautifully kind of coexist independently of each other. But understanding how this works, hence why we have that feeling of, I really feel like doing this, but my heart says no. That's because the heart has an independent functioning system on its own. It actually stores memories there as well. So now you can see the conflict that's happening between these two. And if we can get these two to communicate correctly and understand each other and have a beautiful relationship, you will be in such a beautiful coherence with life itself. And to understand the messages that's coming in, that's flowing in. And in MAT, we will also learn how to work with ancestral traumas, right? To recognize when something is an ancestral trauma. I mean, even did you know that most phobias, like 50% of phobias, normally belong to ancestors? Like there's a reason why you have a fear of spiders, but you never actually had a negative experience with a spider. I mean, it could be that a spider ran past you when you were in a traumatized state as a child and associated the trauma with a spider. So every time when you see the spider, it reminds the unconscious mind of how you felt in that time. Because it was happened at such a young age, it became an implicit memory, which means you cannot consciously recall the reason why you feel the way that you do. Meaning you can't say, oh, there's the spider. I'm feeling bad because it's reminding me of the time when, my mom or dad hit me or when I felt rejected. So we associate the spider with a negative feeling that we had. And this poor innocent spider actually has nothing to do with how you feel. It's just a reminder. So it's really about learning how to fine tune and to understand how the body reacts, why it reacts the way that it does. Because the biggest problem that we have in life is lack of awareness. We have discomfort. We know something is not working for us, right? The body reaches out through discomfort. But now what happens is that we feel the discomfort, but there's no awareness why the discomfort's there. And that's what MAT easily and quickly shows you. Why is the discomfort there? Now, brilliant. Now we have awareness of a problem. And in class, I teach awareness of a problem is a problem of solving. The other half and bring yourself back into the present moment, because that is where you are the most powerful. Because literally every day we are constantly living in the past. We're living in the past because our conscious mind is constantly being reminded of past events. And we are also genetically, biologically designed to be negative. We are biologically designed to think negatively as well, because that's the body's way of survival. It's constantly suspicious of its environment and searching and scanning what could be a threat to my survival. And because of that, that state can become a lifestyle if we don't have conscious awareness of it. So if at least if we have conscious awareness of it, we have that 50% awareness. And now we can change, allowing the body to learn and to understand we are safe. By having that conscious awareness and being able to communicate with the body alone. I've helped so many people with just anxiety, severe anxiety, just that simple concept of just understanding that, okay, this is in the past. There's nothing in my environment validating how I'm feeling right now. I'm okay. I am safe. And that immediately calms down the amygdala, it calms down the hippocampus. And of course, as a beautiful ripple effect, the reptilian mind calms down, the instinctive muscles in the body calms down, and the stress hormones that repeats a 20-minute cycle stops. And the body resets and it goes back to normal. So I'm very, very excited to share all this really in-depth information with you. So let's just have a quick look about the layout. As you can probably see here on the screen, I hope that you can. It says here what you will learn at the MAT event. So we're going to blast open your intuition because there's a specific process during our development that actually disconnects our intuition. And I'm going to take you through that process to heal that and to reconnect that beautiful moment, which is before and just after your birth. We're going to heal that and allow the intuition to open up and to flourish again. So you'll be learning and understanding, how to complete trauma cycles and how effortless and easy it is, because 99.9% of the time it happens without even realizing it. Now, what's the 0.1%? Just that slight shivering, or maybe just a gentle crying cycle trying to complete. That's a more evident cycle from trying to complete. We'll be looking at ancestral trauma and how that's affecting the body, and understanding when something is an ancestral trauma and when it's yours, and how to easily heal that and deal with that. And then we also have, for example, we have, oh, Karen, you went up fast.
Oh,
That's okay. Then we also have the associative states. We have instinctive responses. We also have, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is very important. There's 3 extra instincts in metaphysical anatomy that we work with that's not necessarily in the psychologist's manual. However, numbness, which is called dissociative state, surrendering as well. Now, numbness, dissociating, and surrendering is also instinctive responses in metaphysical anatomy, because we act out on these mechanisms without consciously thinking about it. It just happens. It's spontaneous, like an instinctive response is spontaneous. So, because let's look at it this way. If you had to think every time of which instinctive response you're going to act out on, you wouldn't be alive today, right? It requires zero conscious thought. It's instinctive. The body spontaneous reacts. It's like when someone claps their hand and you jump. You didn't think about jumping, it just happened. So, and the utmost importance of these states, because, for example, suicide is very strongly connected with the surrender instinct. And we go a lot more into that to help people to understand that and to really call their power powerfully back from that. And it's just because of lack of understanding that we feel powerless to it. Ultimately, we're actually not. It's just our lack of understanding and our defragmented relationship with the body. Then we will also dive into womb trauma. Oh, this is so much fun. So we spend an entire day on this, because we look at the umbilical cord, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, and also your mother's stress and how that overlapped into you, and how that becomes part of your life's foundation. Decisions that you make, emotions that you feel, chronic depression, chronic anxiety tends to stem from here. We've had huge success by just looking at the womb sometimes, and the programming that happens here and the identity overlap. Here we really strip away things that don't belong to you and bring you back to your true, authentic self. And then we also I teach you how to effectively work with pain. It was funny. I'm teaching here in Sydney, and I just had with the one guy messaging one of the students saying, "Can you please come in to thank me?" And I'm thanking for what? It's just like, "Oh, remember you did that demonstration with him because where he had the medically diagnosed slip disc in his lower back and he was suffering from a lower back pain." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." I'm like, "Why does he want to come?" And like, "He wants to thank you because his pain never came back. It's completely healed." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that." That's very nice. So the power of understanding how pain is stored, that's the powerful part, because I'm sure many of you here who are in physical pain can relate to this. It's a tough nut to crack, but there's a reason for it, because pain is stored in a very complex way. However, if you know how it's stored, you can simplify it by knowing where to go and where to look and how to dislodge it. And that comes with understanding it, because the pain and the fascia plays a very important connecting role with each other and how pain is surfacing in the physical body. We look at secondary gains. There's people who sometimes spend an entire session on just secondary gains. I have $1 to $2 million questions that knock secondary gains out of the ballpark. Right? We're going to be looking at soul copies. This is emotions and memory snapshots of people that you've interacted with in your life that has a huge impact on you. Again, there's this coping mechanisms and emotions that we've healed in people that they've been battling and fighting against their entire lives, and it was just a soul copy, right? So we're going to teach you how to recognize them and how to easily heal them. I'm going to teach you as well. Here's my favorite part. This is so much fun because the brain is amazing. For neurotransmitters, you're going to learn how to work with them, how to tap into mirror neurons, how to tap into computation neurons, because these guys are going to play an extremely important and vital role, giving you information, what the person is thinking or feeling, especially when you get stuck in a session. I'm going to explain to you easily how to tap into that. Right? So we're going to be looking at the nervous system, the spinal cord, because that's where we hold ancestral values, ancestral belief systems that we're in conflict with, hence scoliosis, right? Think back, look at someone with scoliosis. What do they feel most in conflict with? Where in their life is it that they want to go? And how do they feel in conflict with family beliefs and values? Right? There's a huge discord, there's a huge conflict there, for example. Back pain, exactly the same thing. There's something that you so strongly believe in, but it's in conflict with someone or a certain relationship dynamic that you also value. So now there's a massive conflict and then twist in the spine. So we'll be looking at the brainstem, the medulla, which is the reptilian mind, the instinctive responses. We'll be looking at the midbrain, which is where, and the midbrain we specifically tap into when we work with pain. We'll be looking at the amygdala and calming the amygdala down, knowing and understanding how this panic button, that's our inner 4-year-old, how to understand this beautiful panic button that's actually been keeping you alive, but also how to kind of like call your power back from it with discernment. Right? We'll be looking at the limbic system, which is the emotional brain. That's when neuroplasticity and neurogenesis also takes place, is in the limbic system. And then also we'll be looking at how to, if you have clients and if you love past lives, there's a specific place in the master cell where we heal past lives. And an hour session is now going to turn into a 5-minute session. You're absolutely gonna love this one. Absolutely love it, because remember, whatever you went through in a past life, those unresolved emotions and dynamics is going to come through into this life in the present moment, because you are going to choose a DNA lineage that's going to help you to complete the incomplete aspects from that past life. So it's so important to keep bringing it back to the here and now, healing it in the biological makeup, and then the past life aspect we tackle in the master cell. And you'll be learning how to become a very powerful practitioner and understanding how also associations is locking in trauma, and how associations also is the culprit for why manifestation doesn't work. So understanding all these concepts and turning that around and calling your power back from that and learning how to effectively manifest and how to create the life that you want. This technique is for you, right? So ultimately, if you don't want to become a practitioner, no problem. Become at least your own best practitioner. It's time to call your power back from the past, because it's not real anymore. What is real is the here and now, is you and me here right now having this conversation. So I hope that that was of value for you and what I was sharing. And also, if you would like to join me, I will actually be teaching the last level 2 live event in America in Boulder, Colorado, because it's geographically in the middle, so it's easy for everyone to travel to. The date will be the 25th to the 29th of September. And the level 1 online course is a prerequisite for attending the level 2 course. However, I'm making this super easy for you. You can do the level 1 online course online, so you can do it in the comfort of your own home. And here's where it gets fun. So after the level 1 online course, you will be added to, we have a live 24/7 WhatsApp support group. I'm there. We have many other practitioners there. You can do healing swaps with them. We have a closed Facebook group. We also have every second week, we have live webinars where you can email questions to me and I'll happily answer it for you, and you can interact with me. We can talk and I can give guidance and support and advice where needed. And now also you might be asking as well, can I do the level 1 online course and then the next day come to the live event if I feel spontaneous? Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. We'll be learning a lot of these techniques and tools that you're learning in level 1. We'll just briefly touch on it in level 2 as well. However, in level 2, we're really going to dive deep into the biological makeup of the body. And also, as a gift from me to Karen, which of course is to you as well, and to thank you as well for joining me here, you can also grab your copy of Metaphysical Anatomy Volume 1, the big book, and you can get 20% discount for the next 7 days. So you can go to www.rapidgrowthdiscount.com. That's www.rapidgrowthdiscount.com to go grab your 20% discount. So I'm super excited to share that with you. And Karen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Evette. That was amazing. Man, I'm going to watch this again just so that I make sure I don't miss anything.
And Karen, you'll be sharing a replay with the viewers as well, just in case they have friends that they would like to share it with.
Yes, and I'll mention that in the email, and I'll also put it on Facebook, and I'll send it out to the whole database actually. So
okay, excellent.
I so help you get this work out there because it's so needed in the world.
Right. This book is available on Amazon. However, from this specific site, we have the 20% discount. So just be mindful of that. Just be mindful.
Thank you. So for anyone that missed the webinar, I mentioned that they can get this discount, save 20%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. That's very generous of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then also the customized panel, the matte customized panel. It will have about 50. I'm still working on it. So for those of you that would like that, just let me know. Just send me an email, karen@quantum-life.com, and I will send you that to upload into your Quantum Infinity as a customized panel. So I want to learn more about this, and if I wasn't going to be in San Jose, I would be in Colorado.
I would love to have you there.
Oh, yeah, this is so transformational, and I see it as soul work. I mean, it's so.
Yeah.
I'm a minister with MSIA, which is it's all about soul transcendence. And it's not your regular church. I mean, I love what you say about past lives because, we all believe that we've been here many, many times. And
of course.
Our purpose or our goal is to get off the planet and not create more karma while we're here. So this work actually gives us the tools to not create more karma for ourselves.
Exactly.
It's beautiful. Thank you so
much.
much.
To call our power back.
Yes, it is. It's totally empowerment. Yeah, which we all need that. I mean, like you said, we're so bombarded by environmental toxins and society has control mechanisms everywhere. Whatever we do, there seems to be some type of control. So this is, again, the tools to free ourselves from that, so we don't have to go and get out of the system and live in a community, even though that would be beautiful for a lot of people. We don't need to escape. We can have tools that can help us survive and thrive, in life.
Exactly, because we also don't just escape, we also fight. But we're fighting because of lack, but we also fight because of the inner lack that we're feeling. and then we're fighting for it in our environment. But if we can start to fulfill that lack within, you can come from a place of so much inner strength and so much more confidence, so much more certainty, and to start erasing the insecurities, to start erasing the need to fight. Because we lose so much energy on fighting. Because remember what I said earlier as well about the RAS. If you always feel that you have to fight for everything, then that is what your life is going to become. Because you will just filter in everything that you need to fight for. But why fight for something that's divinely yours?
Yeah. Beautiful. So well said.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know it creates againstness, doesn't it? Which
Yeah.
drains our energy.
Yeah.
Like fear.
It's a
Yes.
distraction.
So we can transform all of this. So anyway, I can
Exactly.
talk with you more about how to get started with all of this because I'd like to do level 1 and get the book too. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so
Well,
much.
all right. Well, thank you all for being with us. And if you have any questions, please contact me or you can contact Evette. And Evette's information is here and on the other website. And I will actually put the information, send it out with the upload of the recording. And then also, please check out Evette's YouTube channel. And I'm just going to go to it now because I've already got it up here.
Oh yes, I actually just also released the emotional stress and psychosomatics behind migraines. So,
Oh,
and I see, yeah, there it is. I just noticed that there's a huge wave now of migraines also coming up. So it's interesting. There's a reason for that.
yeah, I've suffered all my life actually since I was about 9 years old from
Yeah.
severe migraines. And I think, do you find that they're primarily hormonal related? Well, stress related for sure, but also hormonal?
Yes, hormonal, absolutely, and of course also diet related.
Yeah, of course. And
But
dehydration.
exactly, but also when we look at the diet relation, the emotional stress that was present when certain foods were being digested, and then that emotional stress being recorded with the type of food, which then aggravates the nervous system as well. So, and this happened like say 200-300 years ago in the DNA lineage, and then you eat the same food and the body has an overreaction to it because it's the threshold for dealing with this constant emotion being triggered and activated. And it's literally like the body becomes allergic to the food because it's fed up with the cycles and the emotional cycles because it's hit its threshold for dealing with it. And then that's why the body starts to react to it. It's like to tell you, I don't want this. Stop giving this to me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's in our
And so it
subconscious.
creates pain, which pain is a call to action.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I
Just
know.
one of many examples.
The two triggers for me are chocolate and cheese, the two things I love the
Oh, oh
most. Yeah, it seems to be the case for a lot of people that suffer from migraines. Yeah.
no. Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, so much is stored in our cellular memory that we are like consciously unaware of, isn't it? So we have
Yes.
to find tools like this to tap into that and clear it and transform.
Exactly.
Mm.
And I'm very excited to show everyone how to exactly do that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Well, let's get this out there because so many people are desperately needing this and not even realizing it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because the stress has become a normal lifestyle.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we tend to be very adaptive. It's part of our nature, isn't it?
Too adaptive.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the shaking out. Like dogs do that so naturally, don't they? They shake
Yeah.
and they're shaking off trauma.
Yeah, and cats purr, so they discharge the energetic energy. But what happens is that cats, as they take on people's emotions as well, and they feel their own stress, the purring, the frequency actually releases the stress from their nervous system. But
Wow.
dogs has a much harder time. Dogs actually don't have that capacity. That's why dogs tend to be have more ailments than cats. So that's also why when you pick up the dog and you put it down, it shakes. It's literally trying to shake off whatever stress it took on from you, because animals are very beautiful healing conduits, but they don't know how to release the energy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and so often they take on our stress, right?
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
great point. Well, thank you. All right, well, we're right on time. Okay, Yvette, thank you so very much.
Thank you to you too. Thank you for creating the space, Karen. Thank you for your time. And I want to thank everyone that was also on board here with us. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for joining me. Reach out to me. I'm happy to connect. And hope to see you in Boulder. Looking forward to for
That would be
2018.
great. Oh, I'm
Really
sure
looking
you'll
forward
have,
to it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure you'll have a great turnout there. And Boulder is such a great place to do events.
it is. I
Fun
love the
place.
energy there.
Yeah, it's a great vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very grounding. That's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. All right. Well, be well, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.